Warm welcome to our 8th speaker for today, Mr. Creative Andy Blood.
Good evening. If this was the big day out, I'm not sure if I'd be Lily Allen or Muse. Either way, if I bomb, Ray is going to look really, really good. If I'm good, Ray's going to be great anyway. I'm not going to talk about advertising, and I'm certainly not going to try and sell you anything. Let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay. We're living in the overlap. It's a really interesting concept I came across last night when I should have been rehearsing for this presentation. But that's the thing with ideas. They kind of, you know, they stick, they distract, they get under your skin, they kind of make you do things when you perhaps should be doing something else. And it's the idea that there's really nothing new in the world except in the space where existing things get recombined into something really new, really fertile, and really interesting. And we've seen some of that today because very few of the speakers today know each other. And we certainly didn't compare notes. But universal themes that are coming across: culture, anthropology, chiefs, tribes, failure, the golden ratio, all those things. You know, they've been woven through everybody's presentation, really, and I'm going to talk about those things too, if we don't have a technical hitch. And I've also got zombies. Zombies. I did think about moonwalking onto stage in a red leather jacket and a white glove, but Richard was worried about me bringing the reputation of TED down a peg or two. So, yeah, you don't get that, thankfully. I couldn't have given this presentation a year ago. I certainly couldn't have given this presentation 6 months ago because some of the technologies involved in this presentation, this window that I'm about to show you, didn't exist 6 months ago. If I hadn't seen a TED video 2 years ago, I wouldn't be here. If I hadn't seen that video, it was the first time that the revolutionary technology of silver light, sea dragon, and photosynth was actually given to the world. If I hadn't seen that, then I wouldn't have been able to work with Nigel Parker this year. If the recession hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been here, and I wouldn't have been working with Nigel Parker either, because the recession has forced us to innovate and forced us to find no-cost ways of sharing our ideas about things with the world. I couldn't have worn this T-shirt a week ago, because I made it today. But the information on it I got at the weekend, so I don't know if you can see, but R1, B1, B2, AL, A4 is a series of haplogroups. So this is, in terms of propagation, this is how my genetic material emerged from Africa and found its way into Northern Europe and England, and especially Ireland, and certainly the west part of Britain over the last 60,000 years, which You know, in line with today's presentations, we had, you know, hindsight, insight, and foresight, and I'm going to talk about propagation. This is my propagation. This is my view on propagation right now, and with a wing and a prayer, it's all going to work. This doesn't work. I'm just testing the laser. You gave me a laser. The laser works. So I've got a laser. Okay, propagation to the power of 9,000. Anybody who saw this speech two weeks ago, and there will be a handful of people here, I've been back to it. I've revisited what's going on. I've done the maths because I didn't want to look like a fool. A better title would be to the power of 90,000. Next slide, please. And this really comes about with a fascination with the real-time web. And it's... Next slide, please. Okay. It's a fascination with the real-time web. It's the response I can get from people around the world in many cultures and many continents, almost instantaneously in a real-time conversation, from the moment you release an idea to the moment you get some feedback from it, to the moment you reshape the idea, then you re-release the idea and see what happens. So it's... I was sitting at home a few weeks ago, one Saturday night, and I just began sketching what I thought is a visualization, what happened when I realized, you know, when I could see what happened to an idea as it traveled across the web. And it's only possible because the open platforms of many of the things we now find that are commonplace. So blogs, Posterous, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all those things. It's the fact that many of those platforms are open. You can see the data within them, so that when you actually launch an idea, you can actually watch what it happens, like dropping a pebble as it begins its ripple across the internet on these multiple platforms. And I did a really, really crude sketch, which you can't see, which was in a revised presentation, which you've obviously chosen not to show. But it was a really crude sketch that I shared with a couple of people in New York a few weeks ago, about 8 weeks ago. And one response was, "God bless you, Andy, you really are a geek." And the second response was, "Zombies. When zombies attack," this thesis we're going to fly through very quickly, is a mathematical modeling of a proposed zombie outbreak amongst a human population. And it comes out of the University of Ottawa in Canada, and it's absolutely superb. I've been through this in detail. You won't be able to see it here, but it is. I've posted this presentation on the web at 1 o'clock today, and before tonight, 40 people have already viewed the presentation. But it really goes through. If you can click through sort of a second a slide if you want, because it's just a good segue into essentially viral, contagious, epidemic spread of ideas, in this case, which is an infectious zombie outbreak. Click through, please, because you begin to see some brilliant mathematical equations that, for me, there are points when maths becomes art. I really, really like it. So keep clicking through. And it's all about going from the point when there is a potential audience of 100% of the human population who might be bitten and become a zombie. It spreads so quickly to the point where, the target decreases so fast to the point where everybody is a zombie, there's no target left. So what happens then when everybody is a part of this epidemic is the epidemic then dies very quickly. Because there is nobody left to feed upon. Keep clicking through it, it's great stuff. And I didn't write it, I'm going to take no credit for it, it's absolutely brilliant. And what it does illustrate, and the person that sent to me did understand that there are many similarities between what I'm going to show and what he sent me. But it does point out a huge difference between the nature of ideas being viral and the nature of ideas being social. Click through, please. click through again, click through, there's all the credits, click through, and here we go. In the old days, and so we're talking sort of 3, 4, 5 years ago, before the real-time web, but beyond the first incarnation of the web, we'd all be quite familiar with, you know, the experience of coming into work, tapping your computer coming to life, going to your email, and finding the most amusing video that somebody has sent you that you know in New York or London or something like that. And it's quite often resembled, you know, a cat being decapitated by the sliding roof of a car, or a small dog being artfully kicked into the corner of a bus shelter like a football. Things like that. So the first and the biggest hits of the viral nature of the web were largely sexy, violent, shocking, and irreverent. Yep. And it's certainly my belief, having monitored a few things over the past sort of 6 months to a year, that the new wave of the web, which is social, has new rules. The sexy, viral, shocking, irreverent doesn't really work to the platform I'm going to show you soon. The sort of social platform where if something's newsworthy, conversational, useful, interesting, facilitational, you know, that's the new rules of the social platforms right now. Next one, please. So this is me, this is you, this is our weapon of choice. This is the thing we interact with every day. This is our portal to the web. For me, it's a Mac. For some people, it's a PC. Next one, please. Now, what we can do with that thing, with the ammunition we load this thing up with, can be text-based, image-based, or moving image-based, but it's largely content, whatever you choose to share. You know, whatever it is that you like, you've found, you've created, somebody else has created, given to you, you're passing on. Okay, next one, please. Here we go again, encapsulation of that. The system I've worked out, for me personally, so it's an individual point of view, and I've done this to make my life easy, is I only have to send an email loaded with content, and I will reach 90,000 people within 30 seconds to 12 hours, depending on the time zone at which I launch that email. If it's the morning, you'll get LA in the afternoon and New York in the evening. I wouldn't launch an email on a Monday because it's Sunday in the rest of the world. Saturday's good because it's Friday in the rest of the world, and so on. But depending on how many people you want to engage with your idea, you'll have to time the launching of your idea to that kind of audience. Next one, please. This is me online. This is my avatar. It's called the Bloodster. It's a photograph taken about 7 years ago, so I'm considerably younger than I am now, but that's the truth about most of us online. Next one. So this is what happens, and I've rigged this system up now where I can do one thing and it will obliterate all, it will populate, not obliterate, it will populate all the social platforms. So I use this thing called Posterous, which is the next slide up, please, which is called a live streaming site. It's built by 2 guys in San Francisco who don't yet have an office. They want it to be the global site for where you stream your life. Formats don't matter, file sizes don't matter. The everyday hassle of uploading things and launching things is taken care of by these clever people. So I run a blog on there, so do a few people in the audience, and it becomes a holding page because what it does, we're coming on to Twitter in a minute, which is 140 characters. We all know that. I guess we're all aware of that. Posterous reduces the need to be constrained by 140 characters because I can load as much content as I want. It does a 140 character link and links back to the content I've created. And I actually got this from, it's quite neat, I got it from Chris Anderson from TED, who runs a blog called Where He Tweets the Untweetable. And that's where he does his lengthy comments, but he signposts them first on Twitter and then drags your attention back to the larger content that he's provided. So a lot of people are beginning to use this. This will probably become standard practice in the next sort of 6 months to a year for most people in the room, I imagine. So the next thing that happens, Posterous for me, auto-post to Twitter, so it's real time. It happens from the moment I send the email. It happens within about 5 seconds. And here's an example of, can you go back one, do you mind? No, you're going to go back a few now. This will do. I imagine most people are quite familiar with this kind of iconography now. Twitter's about who you follow and who follows you. It's not a gold rush, so it's not about having a huge stampede for, I must follow 150,000 people. I must gather 150,000 followers. It doesn't work like that. It's about the quality. It's about the, follow interesting people, be followed by interesting people. That's kind of how it works. But the audiences for your messages are essentially your followers. The next thing this sequence does, I auto-post from Posterous Twitter to YouTube. So if I'm sending a video, it's really useful. So I don't have to worry about whether it's AVI, MPEG, .move, any of those kind of things, any weird formats. I just flick an email. It's automatically populating these bases. So that's pretty cool too. Next one. The next thing that happens, and almost the final link in the chain, it does appear on Facebook. Now, to me personally, Facebook's not that interesting. I've been on it for nearly 5 years. I've got 500 friends, all that kind of stuff. But because it's a live casting event, not a mind casting event, it doesn't really interest me that much. Having breakfast, walking the dog, status updates, all that kind of thing. It's cool, but it doesn't really interest me. What you do get on here, I'll show you in a minute, it's not a multiplier effect, so it's not a ripple in the pond. It really just comes down to people going, yeah, I do like that, or no, I don't. Next one, please. That's just another close-up. With better resolution, you'd see all the same blog posts going through the chain here. Next one, please. The final link in the chain for me, just because I've made it happen to increase my convenience and remove obstacles, is what I do then is my stuff appears on the agency blog, so it's all happened at one go. Next one. This pull-over tab that you see on the left-hand side is something called Tweetboard Alpha. It's about 4 months old. It gives me a real-time aggregate of anything that I might do across Twitter. So it automatically populates the agency blog with everything I've been thinking about, everything that I've chosen to share, and people can then kind of go to if that's their kind of thing. It's the final link in the chain for me personally. It's just closing a few of the dots. Next one, please. So getting into it, when I wrote this, I had about 400 followers, and here they are. This is their avatar sort of collection. Next one, please. And they really are a strange bunch. We have CEOs, people at digital agencies around the world, influential people, journalists, economists, commentators, people who are just interested. And then more recently, since I first did this, I really got into following the people at NASA because the astronauts are going up in the space shuttle. The guys did their first tweet from space that I thought was really cool. And it happened to be, whoa, we're getting used to floating right now. It's fantastic, which is brilliant. And then they did their first Spanish Twitter from space and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into it a bit deeper, and then I got into some NASA people, started following some NASA people, started following some Russian cosmonaut-type people. Before I know it, I'm being followed by the American military, which is kind of flattering and interesting, but also slightly scary. Next one, please. And even scarier, and I don't know why this happened, I'm being followed by... You can go and search this stuff. It's real. You can go through my follower list, and I'm being followed by a group called Infidel for Life. Now that begins to scare me, because they tend to send messages and share messages about things that are happening in Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia many hours before these things appear on, more traditional media. So it's quite unsettling. I'm not actually sure if that's a good thing or not. But for the time being, I'm at least going along with the idea of it before I might decide to unfollow these guys, because I'm not quite sure about the unholy triangle that's beginning to develop here. Next one, please. Now, what I've found, because I don't advertise my blog, it's a pretty locked, it's a pretty closed experiment. The only real way to get to the content onto that blog is from Twitter. So I can measure the number of people coming to my releases on the blog, and I can work out the percentage of those people compared to the percentage of my wider audience. And what I've seen in terms of what people do when they get your message, your conversations, your shared content, is that out of 400 people, what you tend to get is four followers, which is 1%, will decide to share your message. And then what happens next? Similar ratio, 4 of their followers, 4 of their 400, for example, will unshare your message again to the wider audience. So you can see how things begin to get exponential. And I've deliberately kept my numbers low because I didn't want people to go, oh, he's making this stuff up, he's just inflating these figures, he's doing all this stuff. So I've taken a low base average to do this thing. And I'll show you a bit of an amplified version in a minute. So next one. Again, yeah, so it just keeps going on. So this is the stat bit. So 1 to 400, 1% equals 4, 1 to 400, 1 to 400, blah, blah. So in 2 degrees, next one, please. 2 degrees of, go back one. Okay, doesn't matter. In 2 degrees, you get to something like 21 times 400. So you get to 8,400 people actively engaged in your idea really quickly. That's not 9,000, but I added 500 from Facebook, which is fine, so it approximates to 9,000. And I don't consider them a multiplier, so that's okay. And I haven't included YouTube, because I've done this afterwards. So effectively, it's you know, in the first instance, it's 1 to 9,000 within a very, very short space of time. Next one, please. What I have found, doing a bit of digging, and this is quite cool, apparently the ratio moves from 1 to 1.36. Apparently the fact that somebody shares your idea increases the social currency of your idea by about 1/3. So it goes from 1 to 1.36. So the multiplier gets multiplied. And it gets unmultiplied, because the fact that somebody said, this is really interesting, means over here it's going to be 1.36 squared times 400, and it's also a bigger set. It's a bigger data set, so the amplification is even bigger. So what we're working at, and I don't know what's coming next. This is the first version of the presentation, was 9,000. The second version of the presentation, if you include the multiplier over 3 degrees, means it's 1 to 90,000, which is pretty cool, because all I did was send an email loaded with content. Next one, please. Now, so that's great. You know, from a hypothetical point of view, then you know, oh yeah, awesome, what happens next? A lot of people like to use Google, obviously. You know, a lot of people like to use Bing because it's a really nice interface. And I'm not just doing that because Nigel's here. But Bing is a really clean and really nice search engine. So Google Bing. Not sure. If you're not sure, go to a website called askboth.com. Put your search in there, and this is what you get. You get your Google rankings without the ads. You get your Bing rankings without the ads. And in the middle, you get your Twitter search. And what you do find, if you guys, you know, you can't see it here, but if you did go back to the presentation, every single link on here has been propagated from the social network I've just showed you, every single link. And I did this because I was really astonished by the fact that we were doing something that didn't seem to catch a fire on the web. So I spent a few hours working it all out, linking it together, putting a bit of effort in, and then making sure we were the top across all these platforms. And then the next thing that happens, and I haven't spent a penny yet, all I did is send an email. This is just a snapshot of traffic to a site. In this case, it's adidas.com because it's two of the recent examples I've been working on. Now, the four big bars are related to the two campaigns I've just been involved in. Everything at the bottom end is just facilitational, so it's the everyday. We're going here to do this, we're going here to do that. Our time spent here is quite short, it's quite facilitational. 25% of the traffic to the global adidas.com site has been launched by two campaigns that I've seeded that way. And again, you won't see over here, but one of them, time spent on the site at 2.5 minutes, is 5 times more than this transactional stuff. So, I don't know, for me, that's proof of concept. And I'm nearly there, because I can see you warming up in the wings. Next one is the final slide. And the new rules of this system are, it's fragile, it's voluntary, it's opt-in, no one's getting paid, and they're only there because they're interested and they're involved, and they're being nice. It's fragile. It's self-regulating in a way. The moment you do something wrong, inappropriate, it will crumble. And the chances of you building that back up again are pretty slim. So in a sentence, the real-time web, don't be antisocial.